When a person leaves this world, they encounter such astonishing mysteries of existence that it can deeply shake those left behind. However, there are individuals who accompany the dying in their final moments. It's these people who can learn about death in ways that remain hidden from ordinary folks. One such specialist is Barbara Karnes. Her profession involves caring for those in terminal states, people with fatal diagnoses. These patients can no longer be cured by doctors. All that's left for them is to live out their remaining days and weeks. Here's how Barbara describes her challenging work. There's a common belief that doctors often become cynical, but that's not entirely accurate. Over more than 20 years of witnessing others' suffering, it seemed like I should have turned into a detached cynic or an atheist myself. But the opposite happened. Every day, dealing with the most enigmatic side of human existence, instead of losing my sensitivity, I developed a profound respect for the mystery of death and gained faith in life after death. And who better than me to talk about it? After all, I've personally witnessed thousands of moments when a person departed this world. By observing her patients, Barbara created a unique guide in which she detailed the behaviors of people during their transitions from this world. Her work covered all aspects related to how souls prepare for the journey into the afterlife. Here's what she said on the subject: "Death levels everyone. Among my patients were both ordinary workers and those holding high positions in society. Yet, at the moment of death, social status loses any significance. All people, regardless of their standing, feel fear of the unknown. The fear of death intensifies, especially if the dying person had previously seen a loved one pass away in a difficult manner. However, from my observations, this fear begins to fade shortly before death itself. In most of my patients. Additionally, Barbara noticed that a few weeks before death, people often see and even converse with those they knew in life who had passed before them. According to her, this phenomenon is extremely common. Over the years of her work, Barbara collected many such stories. These cases convinced her that loved ones who have already departed truly come to the dying in their final days to support them and help transition from our physical world to another spiritual dimension. Based on Barbara's observations, the most frequent guide to the afterlife is the dying person's mother, and there's deep symbolism in that. If the relationship between child and mother was always warm and full of trust, then she remains the most important and closest person. A mother gives life to a person and then accompanies them in the passage to metaphysical realms. One of Barbara's patients, in the final stage of cancer, spent her last night in unrest. Only toward morning did she manage to fall asleep. But at dawn, she suddenly opened her eyes and looked at an empty part of the room. Her face lit up with a tired but joyful expression, and she quietly whispered, "Mom, how glad I am to see you." A few minutes later, the woman peacefully left this world. Barbara also shared other examples. In one of them, the guide to the afterlife was the dying woman's father. Here's how she described these stories. "Among my patients was a woman who was dying after an unsuccessful surgery. The thought of death terrified her so much that she often repeated to me that she would fight for her life until the very end. 2 days before her passing, I noticed how from time to time she would sit up, look past me, and seem to exchange short sentences with someone invisible. When I asked who she was talking to, the woman replied that she saw her deceased father. Shortly before death, with a smile, she said, 'Everything is fine. I'm not afraid.'" At the end of her account, Barbara noted, "I can't provide a scientific explanation for these phenomena, but I've witnessed them, so I believe in their reality. It's one thing to read about it in a book, and quite another to experience it personally and feel the touch of the otherworldly realm with your entire being. That's a completely different experience. Sometimes, several loved ones who passed earlier come to the dying all at once. For example, a certain elderly patient of Barbara's a few days before death conversed with her mother and brother, who had died many years before her. She held long conversations, falling asleep each time with a serene smile on her face. On her last night, Barbara heard the woman say, "Yes, Mum, I agree it's time for me to come home." After those words, she peacefully departed this world. Barbara shared her thoughts on such phenomena. There are 3 main theories trying to explain why this happens. The first is the physiological theory, which links visions to oxygen deficiency, the release of endorphins, and other chemicals in the body. The second is the psychological theory, according to which seeing deceased relatives is a defense mechanism of the mind, helping a person cope with the fear of death. And the third is the spiritual theory, which claims that these experiences are connected to the existence of the soul and life after death. Regardless of which theory is true, such phenomena really exist, and I am convinced that there is something more to life than just material reality. Although I don't have full knowledge of how the mind and consciousness function, I believe they are capable of far more than we can imagine. Barbara also observed that a few weeks before death, people start losing interest in the surrounding world. This world stops being their main purpose of existence. As death approaches, the veil separating our physical dimension from the spiritual one becomes thinner. The dying often feel like they are simultaneously in two worlds. Perhaps that's why they begin to see loved ones who passed earlier. Barbara was also a witness to cases where the guides for the dying were their own children who had died before their parents due to tragic circumstances. Such encounters brought immense joy and a sense of peace to her patients. Besides conversations with deceased relatives, Barbara's patients often recounted what they saw when the boundary between our world and the afterlife became transparent to them. Most commonly, they described bright lights, mysterious figures, or enchanting places full of indescribable beauty. One such case was the story of an elderly patient of Barbara's. The woman grew weaker with each day, until one day she unexpectedly sat up in her bed, looked upward, and asked, "Tell me, do you see those lights? They're calling me to them." A few minutes later, she peacefully left this world. Barbara noted that bright lights are a characteristic feature of many near-death experiences. She believed they could be manifestations of spiritual beings or an extraordinary phenomenon from another world that remains beyond our understanding. Or perhaps it's something that the living are not yet able to comprehend. One of her patients described hearing beautiful choir singing and feeling the touch of angelic wings. During such stories, her face radiated a calm smile. In another case, a patient lying in his room suddenly turned to Barbara and said, "It's time to say goodbye. Thank you for caring for me, but now I'm going home. It's so beautiful there, lights and clouds everywhere." That same day, the man quietly departed this world. Barbara shared her reflections on such cases. When patients see these images, it always brings them comfort. For me, in those moments, it becomes clear that their earthly journey is coming to an end. I believe such patients transition to another world with ease and practically without fear. All these visions and stories strengthen my conviction that beyond our reality, there exists something more. These accounts give me hope that when my time comes, someone close to my heart will also come to support me in this important passage to another world. Death, let's admit, instills fear in itself. Therefore, the thought that on the other side, someone dear and close might be waiting for us seems especially comforting. Write in the comments whether you'd like someone to meet you at the moment of crossing to the other side. If so, who could that be? Don't forget to like the video and click the bell to stay updated with new materials. Thank you. We wish everyone long years of life and prosperity.